This is My Legacy. In this week's bonus drop, Dr. Vivek Murthy, former U.S. Surgeon General, and his wife, Dr. Alice Chen, talk about what it means to thrive in life and relationships. Vivek shares the best advice he's ever received, how they are modeling healthy relationships for their kids, and the best prescription for disconnection. Let's jump in.
I know that your father was also a doctor who also did house calls, going directly to his patients. And in fact, you took that a little bit even farther, and the name of your podcast is called House Call. So you really have used that dream, and you're literally living it out.
You're absolutely right that that has stuck with me, and it became the name of the podcast that I had when I was in office. But the other thing about it is, when I was training in medicine, we didn't really do house calls. It was at a time when house calls were sort of being phased out in a sense. They were the things people used to do in the past, but not the way medicine is practiced in the future. But I did have the opportunity just a few times early in training to visit patients in their homes. And I will tell you that it was really eye-opening for me, because as many visits as I would have with a patient talking to them about their circumstances, there was something different when you actually went to their home. I remember one older woman I was taking care of in my clinic, and I was worried that she was falling, at home, and I was trying to figure out what is going on, why is she falling? And I would ask her questions, and she'd say, I don't know, I'm just trying to balance as best I can, but it's getting harder. And finally, I was able to make this call. And when I visited her home, what I saw was that the house was stacked with books and with other objects that she had collected over the years that made the hallways really narrow and hard to navigate. I saw that the carpets were bunched up in rolls, which meant that it was easy to trip. And I also particularly saw that she was living at home alone, right? And that even though she had mentioned people come by, the truth is she was spending much of her time alone. And as I watched her try to navigate from the living room to the kitchen to the doorway, all of that I could see how difficult it was. So sometimes seeing where people are in their natural settings for 5 minutes can be more powerful than trying to talk to them for an hour about what might be happening in their life. And so I saw how powerful that was. And the title House Calls for our podcast was really, it was based on the idea of trying to step into, in a figurative sense, people's homes and understand more about them and about the world in which they were growing up.
And in that podcast, that House Calls, and you interview your guests about finding joy in their lives. And what's that one piece of advice that changed the way that you approach your own life?
So Josh Groban, who's an extraordinary musician and singer, I remember in the episode I did with him, he talked to me about, about a teacher. He had a music teacher early on in school who allowed him to take refuge in the music room, at a time, early on in his life when he often didn't feel like he fit in or he wasn't comfortable. And that had a profound impact on Josh, not just giving him the chance to engage more in music and practice on his own and explore, but it gave him a place of safety. And it also taught him that there were people who look out for you in life, this teacher. And the lesson I took away from that is that you never know when small acts of kindness from you will make a profound impact on someone else. And the science actually tells us very clearly that we underestimate how much of a contribution we make to other people's lives. We underestimate how much warmth they perceive in our interactions. And we sometimes will write them off and say, yeah, that wasn't a big deal. I just said hello. But it makes a real big difference. So I took that away. The last one I'll just share with you is something that came to me from in a conversation with Sebastian Junger, who is a wonderful journalist and author, who wrote this extraordinary book, Tribe, but then has written many books since then, including one on a near-death experience that he had, where he had an aneurysm that burst when he was in a remote location. And it took him a long time to get to medical care, and he quite literally almost died. And he reflected on a lot during that time and the months after about what really mattered in life. And our conversation found its way to children, because he has two young girls, and we have two kids ourselves. And I asked him, as a new parent, I remember very distinctly, I can feel it viscerally as I'm talking to you, just the anxiety early on of being a new parent and just not knowing so much of the things that you feel you're supposed to know as a parent. But sleep was a big one because our first one had a really difficult time sleeping. And I remember friends gave us books. We were reading stuff online, trying to figure out, do we sleep train our child? We tried that, failed like 7 times, I think it was. 6 times, 7 times, something like that.
Too many times.
So many times. But it was very anxiety provoking.
Sure.
And
Sure.
finally, I asked Sebastian actually a little bit about how he approaches sleep with his children. And what he said gave me so much comfort. He said, Vivek, we just take this mattress and we unroll it on the floor in the living room. And at bedtime, the 4 of us just pile onto that mattress and we sleep together, because that's the way we've slept for thousands of years as human beings. And my wife and I felt some of the guilt that we had sort of felt over the years co-sleeping with our kids melt away, because we had been told, hey, if you co-sleep with your kids, they're not going to be independent, they're going to be able to fall asleep on their own, they're going to be stunted for the rest of their life, you're going to mar them socially, like all kinds of things that we were told. But somehow it just felt natural for us to sleep with our kids. And Sebastian in that moment reminded me that what we were doing was actually consistent with how we've evolved as human beings for thousands of years. And it reminded me that when we can talk as parents openly and honestly about some of these struggles, sometimes we can find the comfort and support that so many of us desperately need as parents, because a lot of us are struggling alone.
Absolutely. And Alice, I know that you've said that, and I love this so much, that healing starts with being acknowledging of what depletes you. I just think that that's such a phenomenal line and such a very straightforward way for all of us, but particularly for women, to start looking at healing and wholeness. And so what signs do you tell your patients to look for when they're needing to unplug or they're looking at what depletes them?
Part of it is really sort of thinking about who you are in your best moments, and then looking at yourself as you are in this moment. And is there a gap? Are you, I remember there was a time when I was experiencing a lot of burnout, and I would sort of sneer at people on the street for walking a little too close. And I was like, oh, that is entirely not who I am. That's just not it. Or I'd just be irritated at little things that shouldn't be irritating me.
You see my husband looking at me. He's giving me the side eye.
And sometimes it feels so big when you're in those moments. You're like, the people are being annoying. That's why it's not me. And sometimes, how often do we have an argument and I just say, you know what, I just need to go to bed. And in the morning it's like, hey, great to see you. Glad we're here. Morning. What do you want to eat? Not that sleeping fixes every problem, but I think we tend to sort of get focused on the big questions and the big issues in our lives, and then forget that I didn't eat lunch. That's why this problem is so hard for me to deal with. If I just had a sandwich, just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's all I need to be able to have a little oomph and feel like I'm taken care of. I can do this. All I need is to call my mom or call my best friend and have a little chitty chat in order to deal with this problem at work or this problem at home or whatever problem in the world. I think we forget that we have very, very basic needs of food, water, sleep, people. For some people, for me, I have to have like music, nature, plants. There are things that are really important to me. Someone else, it might be, for this one, it's going to the gym. Sometimes I'm like, just go to the gym. We'll talk about this later.
This is why I love the My Legacy podcast, because we get to hear all the cool, the open stuff. I'm suspecting this is the first time on the public record. I was just like, I'm going to give you a prescription. You might be Surgeon General. Go to the gym.
I'm like, shoes here. Go.
Let me ask one thing, really both, but Alice. In light of the fact, of course, you're both raising small children, what do you all try to model for your kids when it comes to relationships?
I think it was funny when you think about modeling for your children, like constantly like, should I do this in front of them? Should I do that in front of them? Should I not? Is it going to scar them for life? Is it going to teach them something? Will they remember this forever or forget it entirely? I feel like you're definitely trying to model for them the importance of being there for each other, being there for like people in our nuclear family, being there for our parents and our sisters, being there for our friends. Like how important relationships are, that they are more important than, schoolwork and learning algebra. Well, they're not learning algebra. They're just young for it. Well, he's trying to, but.
She makes fun of me because I was trying to explain the concept of imaginary numbers to the kids.
Okay.
And I was like, I think they can grasp this, but I got made fun of.
Yeah, first grade.
She's laughing now. Like, first grade.
But we do definitely try to make it a point that okay, we're choosing to be with family over the summer, that we're choosing to sort of be with people and be there for people, and this person needs our help. That's where we're going and not just playing at home today. So I think that's a really important piece. I think also the vulnerability and the talking about things. I mean, growing up in I think my household, my very sort of traditional Chinese household, you don't talk about feelings and things. You don't talk about loving each other. That's just weird. You give somebody a bowl of melon. That's how you say I love you. I mean, I think both models work. I think whether it's said or it's acted out, that we are expressing how much we love each other. I think we're really trying to model that.
Yeah, I think, building on what Alice said, I think we want our kids to learn what it means to show up for other people, right? And that means not waiting to be invited in, to respond when somebody needs help, not waiting to check on someone. It means not letting your shyness or worry about etiquette supersede your responding with what somebody needs. I'll just give you a simple example from yesterday, from 2 days ago. We ended up in the children's ER a couple of days ago because my daughter was having difficulty with her right hip. And we didn't, we're both doctors, but we're both adult doctors, right? And so, which means that when our child has a problem, we'll try our best to assess it, but we're also cognizant of the fact that there's a lot we may not know. So we did all the usual examinations, maneuvers we would in an adult patient. We realized there's something unusual that was happening with her hip, and so we took her to the emergency room. And the part that makes me really proud about is that my son, there was never a question that he was coming, right? He just assumed when he knew that she had to go to the hospital, the first thing he did is he reached over and he hugged her and he held her close, right? And then he came, got in the car, he came. When we got to the hospital, we're in the bay in the emergency room, and she climbs onto the gurney into the bed, and he climbs right in with her because he knew that his place is right next to her, right, and to make sure she's okay as well. When she went for her ultrasound of the hip, he came right along as well. There wasn't a question that he was staying back in the room, and it's that kind of closeness, that sort of don't wait for permission, but step up and show up for the people you love. We want them to learn that and to instinctively practice that, because I actually do think that is the catalyst for community. It's when neighbors don't wait to be invited in, and when they realize someone is struggling, they show up with food, with support. When friends do that for each other, I think so often we wait and assume that if somebody needs us, they'll ask for us, so we don't want to intrude on them. We don't want to invade their privacy. But so many people are just waiting and hoping that somebody will show up in their lives. And when we do, it can be an extraordinary source of not just joy and support for them, but every time you show up, it reminds somebody that they matter. And in a world where so many people feel invisible, sometimes that's everything.
And there's a flip side to that as well, which is teaching them to accept help and accept kindness. I feel like when soon-to-be moms, they don't actually ask for advice. You just give them advice. This is unsolicited advice, but I'm saying I've come to say, like, if anybody offers you anything, just say yes. Because that's something that I learned as a new mom, was like, you just need people to show up with food and show up to hold the baby for 5 minutes because you really do need that shower. Like, you just need people. And I feel like it took me so long to learn that lesson that I want our kids, I mean, right now they obviously accept help because they're 7 and 8, but as they get older and as they become sort of independent people, to just let people in, because people also need to be let in and feel like they matter to you because you're accepting their help.
Hey, just to talk about guys for a moment here too. There's such a good point Alice raises about moms, and it reminded me, we got a message once, an email from a member of the public who said, I'm a new dad, and I'm a doctor, and my wife is a doctor too. And I noticed that when our son was born, all of her female friends were congratulating her, asking her what help she needed, offering support. And none of my male friends in the hospital, like, barely even said anything about the fact that I had a child, much less offered support. Like, what's going on here, right? That was his question to us. And I do think that at some level that that men in particular, I think, have a hard time asking for help and often even accepting help. I think because we bring everybody, like boys and girls up, but particularly men up, in a culture which tells them that being masculine, being a real man, is about not needing other people. It's about being independent, and independent means that you're on your own. You can figure it all out on your own. It means you don't, if you experience like worry, fear, anxiety, etc., you don't display that. And so it's about stoicism, and it's about not needing anyone else. And the truth is, that's contrary to human evolution. Like, we all need each other. So I think we want both of our kids, as a boy and a girl, to both understand that it's okay to ask for help, to need other people, and it's important to show up for other people, because we're all going to need people at different points in our life, and that, frankly, that life is just better when we're getting through things together versus when we're alone. Then even like normal everyday challenges can feel overwhelming.
Well said. I love that. Just one last question before we wrap. This has been such a remarkable conversation. And just on our 4 of us, I just want to say thank you. As parents, we're so inspired by your messages. We're so inspired by your prescriptions. Both of you should have your prescription pads out on a regular basis. You're both brilliant. I want to say thank you as well, just to acknowledge something that you so kindly contributed to the latest book that we all wrote together, which is called What is My Legacy? And you wrote a very powerful piece in that book. And the book has done extremely well. I want to say thank you for the contribution and how important the book is in terms of defining one's legacy. The reason I share this is that we look at the root cause of so many of the issues that are keeping us away from what Dr. King called the beloved community. And that concept of the beloved community is such a powerful concept in terms of where we could be going if we so chose as a collective to move in that direction. Of course, we're moving in a different direction, in a very opposite direction. And we argue that so much of the challenges of disconnection are causing these challenges, and that's disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from others, and disconnection from the world. How does disconnection eventually go from dis-ease to disease? Can you put your prescription pads out and help us understand?
It's through a few mechanisms. I think one, when we are chronically lonely and disconnected from each other, that actually raises stress levels in our body. And acutely, stress can be helpful, right? Like if a car is coming at you and you suddenly see it, that triggers a stress response in your body that helps you recruit muscles, your blood gets flowing, your blood pressure goes up, heart rate increases, and all that helps you get out of the way fast. That's a good stress response. The problem with stress is when it's either extreme or prolonged. And when people are experiencing chronic loneliness, for example, and isolation, that prolonged stress can then start to damage tissues and blood vessels and lead to increased inflammation in the body, which we know then increases your risk for heart disease, diabetes, and a variety of other chronic illnesses. So that's at a biological level, but there's also practical ways in which when we're disconnected from people, we often don't have the help that we need to support healthy behaviors and sometimes to respond to illnesses. So for example, it's hard to just stay in a workout routine all on your own or to follow a certain diet without the support of other people. For anyone who's tried and failed at starting a new diet or workout routine, and I will raise my hand on that one, have tried and failed a number of times, the things that have made the difference between failure and success have often been when there have been people around me to do it with or to support me. If you don't have people to help you get medications when you're not able to get them on your own, take you to the doctor or to follow-up appointments, remind you, as so many spouses do with each other, to go to the doctor in the first place to get screening for colon cancer, breast cancer, or other conditions, it's harder to get those done. So through a variety of mechanisms, we see that actually social connection is, at a practical and biological level, is essential for good health.
Thank you for joining us. New episodes drop every Wednesday with bonus content every Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a moment.